That scared the bejesus out of me. You know, when it comes to making so-called art house horror movies, everyone is always trying to make either The Shining or The Exorcist, American cinema's twin benchmarks for films that manage to straddle the line between bloody, shock-driven, set-piece horror and meditative, dramatic narratives about faith and family and universal psychological anxieties. I'm not 100% sold that Hereditary belongs on the pantheon with either of them, but it's easily one of the most successful attempts at hitting that specific vibe that anyone has managed in years. No small feat, considering the necessary mix of extreme shocker violence, unnerving psychological horror, eyebrow-raising violations of hey, you can't do that narrative taboos, and realistic relatable human drama tends to slip in and out of fashion. In fact, I have no idea if audiences will be intrigued or repelled by this one, but I was pretty spellbound. It's also a fairly difficult film to review without giving everything away. In fact, I almost hesitate to suggest that it even can be spoiled, since it's entirely possible that the reason Hereditary's unceasing unpredictability and omnipresent storytelling gear shifts worked so well for me is that I didn't even know this was a movie I was supposed to be expecting anything from other than a straightforward plot progression. On the other hand, I do have to file a review, so we'll do the best we can. Anyway, the film stars Toni Collette, Gabriel Byrne, Alex Wolff, and Millie Shapiro as the mom, dad, son, and daughter respectively, comprising an upper-class family ensconced in a gorgeous rustic McMansion in rural Utah, apparently paid for mainly by mom's career as a work-from-home artist specializing in disturbingly elaborate miniatures depicting her life and serving as a deviously ingenious way of dumping backstory exposition into the audience without anyone having to talk about it all that much. Much of that backstory concerns her difficult relationship with her own mother, who recently passed away from cancer, and whom we learned was psychologically abusive to her and uncomfortably manipulative of her grandchildren, along with leading a secret inner life, much of which the family only vaguely understands. But even if not particularly well liked, her death has left a grim presence hanging over the family, which, yes, you've likely guessed, is Hereditary's primarily thematic aesthetic focused, playing around with the blurry lines between the way the scars of family dysfunction can make us feel like we're being haunted by malevolent echoes of the past, and possibly being actually haunted by actual malevolent echoes from the past. And that's pretty much what it's safe to say about the plot of the film. See, Hereditary is a thoroughly serious-minded affair, but it's also got at least a toe dipped for necessity in the water of postmodernism, in as much as it's counting on most people who'd be watching to have either seen or absorbed via cultural osmosis The Shining, Exorcist, Amityville, Rosemary's Baby, Sixth Sense, The Omen, Stranger Things, the whole rest of the canon, basically. And writer-director Ari Aster seems to have taken a deliberately sadistic delight in using genre signifiers and our expectations therewith against the audience. As in, oh, you think you know where this is going because you've seen a spooky kid movie before, or a witchcraft movie before, or a satanic cult movie before, or a haunted house movie before, or a possession movie, or a gaslighting conspiracy movie, or a main character doesn't know they're actually the crazy one movie, or any one of those things as a metaphor for familial dysfunction movie, or whatever it is you think you're watching here. Well, think again. We're probably going to change it up in some pretty gruesome way just when you and the characters think you've got a handle on something as basic as who the main character even is and whose side you were supposed to be on this whole time. There's more than a little sleight of hand involved with that, including an implied tendency by evil forces, if in fact they do actually exist, again, no spoilers from me, to simply not follow what we've come to believe the rules are that will feel familiar to fans of supernatural Japanese shockers, but I can only imagine will feel like blatant screenplay cheating to audiences more exclusively rooted in the Western tradition. So all kudos to the fine cast for making all the nightmare logic turns feel authentic, even as things take a full-scale giallo turn come Act 3. Colette, of course, is assigned much of the heavy lifting as the protagonist, who becomes gradually less sympathetic the more she becomes understandable, which in a way might be the biggest taboo Hereditary ends up breaking, considering how Hollywood movies have come to embrace the gospel that emotional transparency is always an innate good in and of itself. But it's Wolff who ends up the surprising standout when one considers the near unthinkable notes he's asked to play once the actual plot starts coming into focus. Credit also to Byrne for bringing humanity to an initially thankless straight man role, and to Shapiro for finding new places to go with one of the genre's most worn-out cliches, the spooky kid that everyone seemingly should have been paying much closer attention to this whole time. Now, I suspect there's going to be some blowback on this one, considering the "you didn't warn me that was going to be in the movie" factor, and the gradual build from Shyamalan-esque somber realism to batshit nuts nightmare plunge. Everyone always says they want an answer to The Exorcist or The Shining, but forget what an assaultive punch to the nuts of audience films like that were received as in their day. Hereditary does a good job of looking safe, posh, and classy, but it's here to rip your goddamn head off, and it does so to the tune of 3.5 stars. Check it out if you dare.